Okay, so these are some old trim pieces of citrine lemon quartz that I'd used in a previous project a while back, and I just used my trim saw and trimmed up a bigger piece. So these are kind of freebies, and this one here looks like it'll work for my project. I only need a 12mm hexagon, so that'll work. Let's see how much it weighs. And it weighs in at 30.34 carats. Okay, so this is refractol, which the original refractol, which has the about the same refractive index as quartz, and what it does is it matches the refractive index as quartz, so all the outside of the quartz becomes pretty much invisible, and you can see into the stone. And we can see this is a nice piece. There's a little tiny inclusion there in the bottom. As you look at it, the bottom left, little feather, but I think I can cut that out. Other than that, it's going to be internally clean. One of Arya's designs was selected for the 2023 Masters Level competition of the United States Faceting Guild. The design is called Montana Madness, likely for sapphires, but I'm not quite sure. But for the competition, the angles have been tweaked a little bit, and you can use any type of quartz, even man-made quartz, that you like. That makes it more available for any cutter to enter. As with any competition, you have to pay attention to the comments or rules. And in this case, the final gemstone must be 12mm wide, plus or minus 0.1mm. So between 11.9 and 12.1mm. And the girdle, which separates the upper half and the lower half of the gemstone, or the crown and the pavilion, must be between 0.5mm wide, plus or minus 0.1mm, or between 0.4 and 0.6mm. Those rules sound fair, and I don't see anything to complain about regarding the rules. But in the gem cutting community, from experience, I know that there will always be that one cantankerous old cutter who will object to something in the rules. It always happens. So we've got our gemstone pretty much pre-formed just by hand, kind of putting it somewhat into the right shape, and trimming off some of the bigger pieces of the rough, and kind of getting it centered where we want it. So now I'll start preforming with my laps, and with the P1 line of instruction at a 40-degree angle, we'll cut to make a center point. So again, with my 240 grit topper, I've preformed the kind of the pavilion, the bottom half of our stone, forming a center point with the P1 line of instruction, but not quite to a center point. There's a teeny bit to go, but my next lap I'll use on this will be the 600 grit. Before I go to my 600 grit, I'm going to go skip the P2 and go just cut the G1, the girdle, the first girdle line of instruction, and just cut the girdle kind of, it'll get rid of this excess rough here and make it a little bit more in the right shape. So I'm going to use my 240 lap to preform the girdle and then move to my 600 grit lap. Okay, I've gone through the first girdle set of instructions and kind of got the stone. It's a millimeter bigger than I want it, so I'll trim it down another millimeter with my finer laps. And of course, I showed you earlier, I didn't come down quite far enough to make the center point. There's a little further to come down, but I'll do that with my next lap. Still need to clean up a little bit here, and there's a facet here and one here that I'll clean up when I do my second row of girdle facets, and when I bring the girdle in a little bit to make the stone a little bit smaller. So preforming with my 240 grit topper just gets it close. Now I'll use I'm going to use a 600 grit solid steel lap that I have, and it should clean up all those scratches pretty well. And I think from there, I believe I can go straight to a 3000 grit diamond on a bat lap. We'll give it a try. Okay, I finished going over my lemon quartz with a 600 grit steel lap. Not a topper, because I didn't want any of the wobble at all. And generally at the 600 level, a topper's fine. But in this case, I want to get it almost exact. So I didn't use a topper. I used a crystallite solid steel 600 grit lap. And now I'm going to go over the facets with my 3000 grit diamond on a bat lap. And then I'll polish, probably with cerium oxide on a cream wheel. I'll probably try that. Okay, I finished polishing the P1 and P2 facets. That's the pair of facets that go around here and the one facet here that goes around. So that's the P2 and that's the P1, that's the P2. So the rest of the facets, so I haven't even cut the P4, which is going to be up here and coming down and touching the P3, and the P3 needs some work. But the next thing I'm going to do is go back and do the final pre-polish on the girdle and then polish the girdle and get that just right, and then come back and do the P3 and finally the P4. Okay, so this is a technique I use sometimes when I have a lot of facet, a large facet here to cut for the girdle. And there's no reason to cut and polish this whole area when the girdle's only going to be 0.5 millimeters, 0.6, 0.4, about the tip of my pointer. So polishing all the rest of it, and then when I transfer and cut the upper half, all that's going to get cut away anyway. So it's kind of a wasted effort and a lot of extra work. So sometimes I use my Sharpie, and my Sharpie, some of my friends in Australia say they don't use the term Sharpie, but my friend Clifford said they do, so that's what a Sharpie is. Use the permanent marker Sharpies, not the ones that can be washed away with water, but the ones that take alcohol to wipe them away. So permanent marker, use your Sharpie, and then I cut up until I have a small facet to work with. Now what I did is this facet in the girdle is 90 degrees. So I went to 94 degrees on my Ultratech, and at 94 degrees I just kind of walked up a line to wherever I wanted, and right here is fine. So when I polish the actual facet, it won't touch any of this. I won't have to spend time polishing that. But now my corner facets, I could leave those and just polish them. Not a very big facet, but I'm going to go ahead and walk those up as well. And so again, the first thing I'm going to do is just make a mark with my Sharpie. And then as I walk it up, it'll be easier to see that facet moving. And then I'll continue to work on our gemstone. I finished polishing the bottom half of our lemon quartz or yellow citrine, and I started polishing with creamway lap with cerium oxide, but I switched to the tin lap with cerium oxide. It seemed to do a little bit better of a job of polishing, a little quicker today and on this material than the creamway. So no issues. I'm just glad I've got the extra lap in my toolbox, so when I want to try something out, I can. So now I'll transfer the stone and cut and polish the upper half. Okay, I've gone over the first row or first tier of facets on the crown with my 320 grit topper, and now I'll use the 600 grit solid steel lap, not a topper, and go over the C1 and the C, and I'll cut the C2 down to make the level the girdle here on these facets. I'm still got the girdle's much bigger than I need, and I'll bring it down to the right width with my finer laps. Now you see this little piece of blue you can see in there? That's because for this stone I don't want to risk chipping the pointy, the culet at the pavilion. So in the bottom of my cone-shaped dop, I put a little bit of modeling clay, which the point of the culet sticks into, so that there's no glue there. So no super glue. So when I finally finish the stone and soak it in acetone and take it off, I won't risk that very pointy part breaking. I don't always do that anymore, but for this stone, I want to make sure there's no cracks, no broken culet. So that's how I make sure I don't break a culet. So now I'll go over it with my 600 grit solid steel lap from Crystallite. Okay, we've got the C1 facets that go along here. They're polished now with cerium oxide and a tin lap. And now I'm going to polish the C2 facets, which are right here. Now the C3 facets, pretty much not quite. I didn't pre-polish those in with the 3000 grit. They go on either side of these C2 tier, and they're polished very quickly, cut and polish very quickly. So I'm just going to polish those in, and then work on the C4. And the C4 is here, and then the C5s I haven't even touched yet, because those are very small and they're going to go up here, and I'll just polish those in as well. So let me continue to polish our gemstone. Okay, I've finished pre-polishing the C4 and the C5 facets all the way around, and so now I'll go back and polish them. I pre-polish them with the 3000 grit diamond on a bat lap, and then for the C4 facet, which is 6 facets all the way around at a 20-degree angle, I then set my mask to a 15-degree angle and used the same index teeth and brought down the top of the crown down, just so it's above the point here where the polish is and the point here. As long as that is above that, I'll be okay, because that's going to be the table. So I brought it down to 15 degrees just to get all that extra facet out of the way. So when I go back to polishing the C4 facet right here, I don't have a gigantic facet going all the way up to here. It just goes down from here to here. And the same with the C5 facets. They're just a small kite shaped facet instead of going all the way up. So now we're ready to polish the final 2 rows on the crown, and then we'll be ready to cut and polish the table. Okay, I've polished all the facets other than the table on the crown. So I will set the stone up to cut and polish the table, and the table is going to come down to here where this V is. So I don't have a whole lot to take off, but a little bit. And I polished the crown with the tin lap with cerium oxide bat stick. Okay, we finished polishing up the table. So now I will soak the stone in acetone and remove it from the dop, and we'll be able to weigh it and measure it and take a look at it. Today I cut a very nice yellow quartz into the Montana Madness design. And I'll tell you that BOPIE does like the gemstone I cut from the design. Got 2 thumbs up. So I'll be cutting this design again in the future, probably in sapphire. The design is not too difficult, and in my opinion, any cutter who has already cut a handful of gemstones would enjoy this design and be able to cut a gemstone to these specifications. There are several tricky parts on the upper half or crown of the gemstone, in that there's 2 tiers or rows of facets which are very small and they cut in quickly. It would be easy to overcut these facets if you're not paying close attention. Please let me know in the comments what you think of this design and of the final gemstone. And if you have cut this design yourself in any material, please drop me a note on Facebook and let me know how it turned out for you. Photos are always welcome. And as always, happy fasting, everyone.